Lindsey Vonn crashes at Olympics. Lindsey Vonn's Olympic dream ends in heartbreak after devastating downhill crash at Milan Cortina. Lindsey Vonn's long-awaited Olympic comeback came to a sudden and emotional halt after the American ski legend suffered a frightening crash during the women's downhill event at the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics in Cortina d'Ampezzo, Italy. Now let's explore this story in detail and uncover the facts on our AI podcast.
Welcome back. Today we're going straight to the Italian Dolomites, specifically Cortina d'Ampezzo.
Yeah.
If you were watching the feed this morning, you definitely saw it. Sunday morning, just a perfect bluebird sky, the Tofana Chute looking like a sheet of glass.
Yeah.
It was the kind of setup that promises a historic day of racing.
It was the perfect stage, honestly. Cortina is one of the cathedrals of the sport. It's technical, it's so fast, and the light this morning was incredible.
Right.
And you could just feel the anticipation building, mostly because of who was standing in that start gate.
Exactly. And that's where we have to start. We are not just talking about the women's downhill final. We are talking about Lindsey Vonn.
At 41 years old.
At 41, which in itself it's just an anomaly. Downhill is the young person's game.
Oh, absolutely. It's all high impact, high risk.
Oh.
To even be there at 41 is, statistically improbable.
Yeah.
To be there with her medical chart, that's something else entirely.
That's it. And the mission for this deep dive is to really look at what happened this morning. Because everyone has seen the headline by now, Vonn crashed.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like the end of the comeback. But we need to peel back the layers on the breaking reports, the medical context, and the race that happened after the helicopter left. Because the context here is just, it's heavy.
It is. It's not just a crash. It's a collision between ambition and, well, biology. And frankly, the physics of what happened on that slope are absolutely brutal.
So let's get into the specifics of the run before we even talk about the injury, because I think the where matters as much as the how.
Okay.
She pushes out of the gate. The crowd is just electric. For the first, 20 seconds or so, she actually looked fast.
She looked very fast, aggressive. And that's Vonn's signature, right? She doesn't ski to finish. She skis to win. Always.
Uh-oh.
She was attacking the fall line. But then she came into that section with the roll.
Okay, the reports all identify this specific roll. For anyone who hasn't skied Cortina, this is not just a little bump. It's a huge terrain change where the ground just drops away beneath you.
Correct. And at Olympic speeds, we're talking 70, maybe 75 miles per hour. A roll like that acts as a launch ramp.
You're in the air.
You become unweighted. Your skis lose contact with the snow. And the critical moment isn't the airtime. It's the reintegration. It's the landing. You have to absorb that force instantly to re-engage the edge.
And that's exactly where it went wrong. She launched, and on the landing, it just wasn't there.
She just failed to stick it. The reports are pretty specific. She didn't land cleanly. It looked like the outside ski chatter, that sort of high-frequency vibration you get when you can't pressure the edge, and she just washed out.
And it wasn't a tumble, really. It was a slam. She hit hard and slid to a stop way, way earlier than you'd expect.
Oh, that's usually the sign of a mechanical failure in the body. When you see a skier tumble for 100 yards, that's energy dissipation. When they hit and stop like that, that's often because a joint has given way and basically anchored them into the snow.
And the atmosphere, you could hear a pin drop in that stadium.
The silence was deafening. You went from this festival, noise cowbells, chainsaws, screaming fans, to an absolute vacuum.
Total vacuum.
That is the sound of collective shock. Everyone knew immediately this was not a get up and brush it off moment.
She stayed down. Race officials red flagged the course right away. Medical personnel were swarming, and she was down for a long time. Minutes.
Which is standard protocol for a high-speed impact, but it feels like an eternity when you're watching. They're checking C-spine, consciousness, stabilizing the limb. But while all that was happening, the information started trickling out about her condition before the race. And this is the part I'm still trying to wrap my head around.
This is the real aha moment of the whole story. We knew she had bad knees. We knew she's had, like a dozen surgeries?
At least.
But the source material today just dropped a bombshell.
Lindsey Vonn was skiing this morning just 1 week after fully rupturing the ACL in her left knee.
1 week. A full rupture.
It's medically absurd.
Let's be real. Most people tear their ACL and they are on the couch with an ice machine for a month. She was in the start gate of an Olympic downhill. How is that even biomechanically possible?
It's theoretically possible, but it's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
The ACL, it prevents your shin bone from sliding forward relative to your femur, Without it, you have zero static stability in that joint.
So she's basically skiing on sheer muscle tension.
Exactly. It's called dynamic stability. She's relying entirely on her hamstrings and quads to co-contract and just clamp that joint in place. She is asking her muscles to do the job of a ligament while pulling 3 or 4 Gs in a turn.
Wow.
The mental processing power required to do that, to consciously protect a joint while skiing at the absolute limit, is just, it's off the charts.
And she did 2 full training runs like this.
She did, which just speaks to her strength. But the problem with a roll like the one she hit is the unpredictability. When you land, the forces are chaotic. You can't perfectly time a muscle contraction to counter a microsecond vibration at 70 miles per hour.
Physics is going to win.
Physics is going to win that battle. Likely the tibia shifted, the knee just buckled, and down she went. It creates this tragic context for the crash. It wasn't a mistake in line. It was a structural gamble that just didn't pay off.
A gamble she was willing to take. And I want to talk about the reaction, because eventually they did get her onto the backboard and airlifted her out. And the crowd's reaction, it shifted.
It went from that horrified silence to applause.
Loud applause and emotional cheers. And not just from fans, but you could see the other racers at the top.
The racers know. They know what it takes to stand in that gate healthy, to stand in that gate with a blown knee. That is a level of commitment that frankly borders on the terrifying. The applause was a recognition of that grit. It was a salute to the audacity of even trying.
Speaking of emotional reactions, the cameras cut to the stands, and seeing her family there really brought it all home. Her father, Alan, and her siblings.
Yeah, that was tough to watch. They looked visibly shaken. You have to remember, for them, she isn't Lindsey Vonn the brand. She's their daughter, their sister, who just hit a wall of ice.
Her sister, Corinne Kildome, gave an interview to NBC shortly after. And I thought her perspective was fascinating. She didn't talk about the tragedy of losing. She talked about the bravery of the attempt.
What was the specific phrasing she used?
She said, "That was definitely the last thing we wanted to see." But then she added, she just dared greatly. She put it all out there.
Dared greatly. Wow, that's the Theodore Roosevelt Man in the Arena reference.
That's right.
That's a powerful way to frame it. It shifts the narrative from failure to, valiant attempt.
Corinne also said, "I know she put her whole heart into it, and sometimes things just happen. It's a very dangerous sport."
And that's the reality check, right? Sometimes things just happen. You can have the best rehab, the strongest muscles in the world, the perfect line, but the mountain, it's an uncontrollable variable.
The family left right away to meet her at the hospital. We're still waiting on the full medical breakdown from this specific crash, beyond what we already know.
Yeah, fingers crossed it's just the knee and nothing spinal or head related.
But the machinery of the Olympics doesn't stop, and this is where we had to pivot. Because while Vonn was in the air, the race on the ground had to resume, after about a 20-minute delay.
Which is a lifetime in ski racing.
Walk us through that. The course is closed, no one is skiing. What happens to the track in 20 minutes?
A lot happens. First, the snow temperature changes. If the sun is beating down on it, the surface can soften up. If it goes into shadow, it can glaze over and get even slicker. But the bigger factor is the track set.
Right.
When skiers are running, they polish the line. When you stop for 20 minutes, that polish can change.
And then there's the mental aspect. You're the next racer. You're at the top, adrenaline is spiked, and then you wait. And you know why you're waiting.
It's absolutely brutal. You have to try and stay warm, keep the muscles firing, but somehow keep your mind calm. You just watched a legend get airlifted off the mountain. The fear factor just jumped up 10 notches.
Well, the racer who handled that pressure the best is someone we really need to talk about. Because amidst all the Vonn headlines, an American won the gold medal.
Breezy Johnson. And frankly, she deserves a massive amount of credit, not just for the win, but for how she managed that whole environment.
She is the defending world champion, so it's not a complete shock. But she was the 6th racer down. She went very shortly after the course reopened.
That is a tough draw. But she absolutely nailed it. Her time was 1:36.10.
Let's break down her run. Because watching the replay, she took a very different approach than Vonn did in that top section.
She did. Breezy is known for being incredibly direct. She doesn't take the pretty round line. She takes the shortest distance. And when she hit that roll, the same one Vonn crashed on Breezy just absorbed it perfectly.
So stable.
Stayed compact, kept the ski-snow contact high, and carried immense speed out of that trouble zone. She just looked glued to the track. That's her strength. She's a power skier. And to have the mental fortitude after that delay to trust your line and not ski defensively, That is champion-level stuff right there.
It was a nail-biter of a finish, though. The margins were razor thin.
Unbelievably thin. Germany's Emma Acher took silver with a 136.14.
4/100ths of a second. That is literally less than the length of a ski boot at the finish line.
That's a gust of wind. That's a slightly better wax job. That's the difference between hearing your anthem and standing on the second step.
And the home crowd got a moment, too. Sofia Goggia took the bronze.
The queen of speed in Italy. 136.69. Goggia is. She's reckless in the best possible way. For her to hold it together for a podium in front of the home fans in Cortina, that place must have just erupted.
It did. And we should also mention Jackie Wiles, another American, finishing fourth, 136.96.
Ugh, the heartbreak spot. Fourth is the worst place to be at the games. But looking at the big picture, Team USA goes first and fourth on a day where their icon crashed out. That just shows incredible depth in the program.
It really feels like a passing of the torch, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Unintentionally, maybe. But you have Vonn, the history of the sport, exiting in this dramatic, painful way. And Breezy Johnson, the current reality of the sport, stepping up to take the gold.
It does. And Breezy has looked up to Lindsey her entire career. To win on the day your idol falls. That has to be a complex mix of emotions for her, I'm sure. But she earned every single inch of that gold.
So we have the result. Breezy Johnson is the Olympic champion. But we have to circle back to the legacy of Lindsey Vonn, because today ends a chapter that has been written over 2 decades.
Yeah, you can't let the crash define the career, although it is a very Lindsey Vonn way to go out swinging for the fences.
If we just look at the hardware, Vancouver 2010.
That was the peak. Gold in the downhill, bronze in Super G. She was absolutely untouchable then.
Pyeongchang 2018.
Bronze in the downhill. And remember, she was already patched together with tape and grit by then. She's been fighting a war of attrition against her own body for 10 years.
She's one of the most decorated skiers in history, period. Today doesn't subtract from that. But I do think it changes the texture of the ending.
It does. It moves it from a victory lap to something more mythical, maybe. It's a tragic arc. She refused to just fade away. She forced the issue. She risked permanent damage for one last shot at that feeling of speed.
The sources mentioned that this willingness to risk everything deepened the respect she commands. Do you buy that? Or do you think some people might see it as reckless?
I think the average person might see it as reckless. You know, why risk being able to walk when you're 50 just for one more race? But in the sporting world, in the community of racers, it absolutely deepens the respect. They understand the addiction to the limit. They get that for someone like Vonn, the recklessness is sort of the whole point. She wasn't there to participate. She was there to defy the odds.
It's the man in the arena all over again.
Precisely. The credit belongs to the one who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood. That was literally Lindsey today.
It's going to be interesting to see where she goes from here. Obviously, the competitive skiing is done. You don't come back from this at 41?
No, this is the period at the end of the sentence. But her impact on the team mentoring Breezy, mentoring Jackie Wiles, that's going to be the next phase. She's built a culture of aggression in U.S. skiing that we saw pay off with the gold medal today.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into a very heavy, very historic Sunday in Cortina, I want to leave you with a thought. We usually measure comebacks by the result. Did they win? Did they get the medal?
It's a binary system, success or failure.
But Vonn's final stand really challenges that. So I want to ask you, does the value of a comeback really lie in the victory? Or is there something intrinsically valuable in just the audacity of the attempt? Is there a version of greatness that exists solely in the courage to stand in the start gate when everyone, including your own doctors, says it's impossible?
That's the question. Is it about the medal around your neck, or is it about the fire in your belly?
I think we saw the answer to that in the applause she got as she was lifted off the snow.
I think we did.
Congratulations to Breezy Johnson, Olympic gold medalist. And our thoughts are with Lindsey Vonn for a recovery that is hopefully just as aggressive as her skiing.
Absolutely. Heal up fast.
Thanks guys for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you on the next one.
Okay, one question for you. How did Lindsey Vonn's daring Olympic comeback end in heartbreak after her early crash? And what does this moment mean for her legendary skiing legacy? Don't forget to comment it. Thanks.